Grazie, 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 dai, forza Ferrari!
Ferrari's back.
Hey guys, Dre back at it once again, and wait, this isn't Formula 1 or Project Cars. Yeah, welcome to FIFA 15, everybody, and yeah, I'm surprised as you are that I'm actually doing this, but a couple of people mentioned this to me on Ask FM, and I thought, why not talk about Manchester United again? And for those that didn't see it last year, I did a video, it was about half an hour long. It was a video of me talking about Manchester United's 2013-14 season, and essentially what is affectionately become known as the David Moyes era. And that, well, there's no easy way to describe it, a disastrous 2013-14 season, and basically me carrying out a post-mortem on finishing 7th, on Moyes not surviving the season, and essentially Manchester United's worst season for about 25 years. So, yeah, I spoke a lot about that in depth, and a lot of people were asking me what's my thoughts on this year's season instead, now that the ship's kind of been righted. And, yeah, I'll be talking a lot about that. I also got some of your questions as well you wanted to pose to me regarding Manchester United as well, and I'll talk about that in the video as well. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, we signed Van Gaal as our manager, and this was announced, I think, just before the World Cup, I think it was announced. And I was worried that Van Gaal wouldn't be a long-term solution, because like we signed him and he's 63 years old. Like, he's only about 7 years younger than Fergie, when he hung it up at 70. And you know what? I think that's okay. And Van Gaal is a manager that has won major trophies just about everywhere he's managed, from Ajax to Bayern Munich, Barcelona, etc. So, Van Gaal certainly had a good reputation behind him, and you know, he came in and immediately showed he had a lot of character. And you know, I like charisma in a manager. I mean, the characters you can make him a little bit more relatable to. It doesn't work so much when the manager's shit like someone like Harry Redknapp or Ian Holloway. But Van Gaal clearly came in with a vision, a philosophy in mind, and that became his favourite buzzword more than anything else. Philosophy. We must have a philosophy here at Manchester United. We must have a philosophy, and the players are starting to learn to my philosophies, etc. And that's my terrible Dutch accent kicking in there. But yeah, it worked out interestingly, because you know, the club needed a rebuild, and I think the board knew that, and they basically gave Van Gaal an open checkbook, and he spent £150 million worth of money on transfers and whatnot. So, you know, we bought Luke Shaw and a Herrera. I mean, Shaw was 30 million, Herrera was about 30 million. Blind was about 12 million. Falcao was the big loan sign-in for 6 mil, plus the £350,000 a week contract we gave him. I'll talk more about Falcao later on in the Q&A section. And obviously the big one was Angel Di Maria for £60 million. And yeah, there was a lot of talk about Di Maria, given that it was, you know, a real blockbuster signing, the most expensive, I think, deal in Premier League history. As we bought Di Maria, and we didn't really quite know what to do with him as the season would go on to prove. But I mean, early on in the season there was a lot of teething problems, and we had a lot of injuries. I think at one point we had 9 or 10 first team level players that were injured, and we were playing with 3 defenders at the back, and it's like, oh my god, what is going on? And you know, Ashley Young was playing at full back, and basically playing as a wing back, playing like a Jordi Alba, Dani Alves kind of role, just without the defending part, just like Dani Alves. But he was playing there. Di Maria was playing in centre midfield, and we just didn't really quite know what to do with ourselves. I mean, yeah, we drew against Sunderland, we drew against Burnley, and that was Di Maria's first game, and he looked quite impressive. And he was constantly rotating players in and out, like Tyler Blackett was featuring in and out in the team. Johnny Evans was battling injury on and off, and again, it was just a situation where there was just so much uncertainty, and we were playing a new formation almost every week. And it's the kind of thing that unsettles you as a fan to watch it. Like it promotes a lack of confidence where you go from one week to the other and you just don't know what this team's going to do or how it's going to play or how it's going to score goals. And, you know, Di Maria went out of the traps like a rocket. He was amazing against Burnley. He did a brilliant job against QPR. He had that amazing chipped goal against Leicester, but then stagnated for a good chunk of the middle part of the season, mostly because we were doing hipster things like playing him up front, which was just mind-bogglingly stupid. And it led to some really eyebrow-raising moments, like dropping a 3-goal lead against Leicester. We were 3-0 up in that game and we lose 5-3. And then all of a sudden, you know, we got knocked out of the Capital One Cup after that embarrassing 4-0 drubbing by MK Dons. And I know that was a C team, but it's still completely unacceptable to take a beating like that. To be fair, at least I'm glad we're not the only team that took such a beating like Chelsea did against Bradford. But, you know, it doesn't make it any less embarrassing, so to speak. So early on in the season, there was a lot of ups and downs, there was a lot of inconsistencies, and there was a lot of genuinely very worrying moments. The injuries, the formation swaps, the embarrassing defeats, the meltdowns that we had, and the defence. Oh god, the defence was all over the place. And clearly Raphael has either banged Van Gaal's daughter or has nudes of his wife on his phone that he's threatening to leak or something, because Raphael never really featured in Van Gaal's plans. Even when he was healthy, he didn't play. And we were stuck with playing Antonio Valencia as a right back, and he's not a right back. He's a defensive liability sometimes. And, you know, I've come to the conclusion that while Chris Smalling was impressive in the second half of the season, you'd think that Phil Jones an article by now, and Chris Smalling's like 26 next year. So you can't help but get the feeling of, if we were ever going to get the amazing Chris Smalling that we were kind of bought him for in terms of potential, it would have happened by now. Phil Jones is still erratic, despite the fact he's got potential to be very good, and he's a very good ball-playing defender like Rio Ferdinand is, or was, I should say, before he retired. When he was in his prime, he reminds me a lot of that, but sometimes he's all over the place. Luke Shaw was good when he played, but he didn't play very much because he got injured all the time, and then we were stuck with playing guys like Marcos Rojo at left back, and he had a good season at centre back, but again, another guy who was very erratic. And then he got injured too. He dislocated his shoulder, and he lost a good chunk of play time this season as well. So, like, we ironed out the kinks just after Christmas, and then we actually found a more disciplined, more structured team by the time we got to February, March, because we had a more structured team, and Herrera was finally getting more game time, and Herrera was exactly the kind of midfielder that we needed. Someone with a bit of mobility, and who can distribute the ball around well. Blind was a little bit inconsistent, playing as a defensive midfielder, but at times showed real maturity. And then we had Ashley Young, who was legitimately too good to play Di Maria, and I thought that was a bit weird. And I think a lot of people overrated Ashley Young's playing this season. Like, Ashley Young was terrible at Manchester United before this season. Just because he looked like a serviceable player now doesn't necessarily mean that he was amazing during the time he was in good form. It just meant he wasn't playing completely dreadfully. That doesn't necessarily mean he was going to be good or anything. People were hinting that he might get an England recall, and I'm like, really? Have you watched him play? He wasn't that good. He was just a better fit for what Van Gaal was trying to do at the time, which was play more possession football, which was a blessing and a curse. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were getting 60, 70, maybe even 80% of the ball during those games. But at the same time, we were failing to create chances. And this was with Wayne Rooney up front, where he kind of belonged, in my opinion. Rooney was playing more of a Football Manager-esque defensive forward kind of role, where he was distributing more than getting forward or trying to beat the last man, because Rooney hasn't got pace anymore to do that, being 29 and well-rounded, so to speak. Not in the playmaking sense. But he was not scoring like he used to. Van Persie got injured for a lot of the season, and I don't think Van Persie's the ticket anymore. And Falcao was Falcao, and we'll get to more of that down the road. But what we were doing was we were getting all this possession, but we weren't creating any out-and-out chances. We were playing Fellaini as a big number 10 to basically play the long ball game with, and then as a result we were compromising Mata by playing him on the right wing, and I'm like, what is Mata doing there? It's like, is this David Moyes again? And for some reason it worked, because we had that streak of where we won 5 consecutive games, beating teams like Tottenham, beating Liverpool, and it was amazing. We did the double on Liverpool. We got 4 out of 6 against Tottenham, and we were looking good. Then we lost to Chelsea, which was it was a semi-deserved loss. I think it was a smash and grab. I think we did play quite well in that game. We beat City in that run of form as well, and all of a sudden we were looking like we could put on a late burst for potentially second. Then we lost to Chelsea, then we lost to Everton, then we lost to West Brom. And that was kind of like the microcosm of our year, really, essentially. And it was so frustrating having gone, winning 5 or 6 games in a row to then getting knocked out of the FA Cup and then losing 3 games where we didn't really deserve to lose any of them. Apart from Everton. Everton were just fucking lazy, and we got caught more than anything else. But we eventually limped home to finish in 4th, and is 4th what you consider a good season? I don't know. It's kind of in the middle. It's like opening up an exam paper and you see your grade is a C+. You look at it and you think, are you going to be happy about a C+? It's like, yeah, well done, you passed, but it's a C. It's nothing to write home about. And I'll be talking about that in the Q&A in a minute as well. But for me, some key notes I wanted to point out, and some pros and cons over the season in short form. David De Gea was our best player this year. David De Gea this year proved he was a world-class goalkeeper, and might be the best goalkeeper in the world, not named Manuel, quite frankly, because he was exceptional this season. And with a terrible defence in front of him, he produced some magnificent saves time and time again to bail us out. I'm adamant in saying this. We'd be mid-table if it wasn't for David De Gea. Wrapping up the new signings real quick. Luke Shaw showed he's got good potential and good promise if he can stay healthy. It's annoying that our 2 most expensive signings this past season were essentially made of glass, and Luke Shaw was one of those dudes. Shaw just could not get any consistent game time within the team because he would keep getting knocked. And I know Shaw's still only 20 years old, and he'll have plenty of time to establish himself within the team as time goes by, but we need another left-back. He's our only designated left-back in the squad. And no, Tyler Blackett and Reece James do not count. So we need another left-back. But Shaw was good. I remember he was very good against Chelsea. And then, for some reason, Van Gaal took him off for 15 minutes to go to play Blackett, and that one still confused the fuck out of me. Angel Di Maria. This is one of the rare cases where stats don't tell the whole story. Di Maria, if you look at it, had 10 assists this season in the Premier League. Only Cesc Fabregas had more than him. But often, he looked lost. Sometimes, honestly, I don't know how Di Maria fits this team still. He should be a left winger, which is what Real Madrid bought him for in the first place. But I think he's the only guy who really gambles in the squad, and he'll lose possession a lot of the time. But I think he's the best player in the team when it comes to having a final ball, which is something that a lot of the other players in the team lack. That final ball to set up a shot on goal. And that's why Di Maria's got that high assist count. Young was a better fit for Van Gaal's system, but Di Maria is obviously just a better football player, and he had a fair few injuries this season as well, where he was taking knocks here and there. So I'd like to give Di Maria another year before casting our nets over him. I think he's another guy like Mesut Ozil, where I think he'll truly come to form next season more than anything else. So for me, that's just the way I feel about Di Maria at the moment. I'm just kind of in 2 minds about him. Ander Herrera was great in the second half of the season. For some reason he couldn't crack the team, and he was like the new Kagawa in the first half of the season, where it was like, we have a healthy Herrera, why aren't we playing him? Like Kagawa, who, was healthy, but for some reason Ferguson would never play. Maybe Ferguson knew something we didn't, because he's gone back to Dortmund and been equally as average, but Herrera just couldn't get a look in early on. But as time went on, he got better, he was distributing well, he was getting forward, he was scoring goals from midfield, which is also a plus. He could take shots from distance. And yeah, I think Herrera was very good in the second half of the season, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of Herrera next year. I think he's established himself as a real solid centre midfielder now, something we really needed within the team. Blind is a great utility player, and you know, I think he filled in at left back admirably a lot of the time last season. I'm just not sure where he fits in this team, like whether he's a real defensive mid like Michael Carrick, whether he's a centre midfielder who's trying to be mature and knock the ball around, or whether he's a left back in disguise. I don't know with Blind, so the jury's still out on him. As I said, I'll get to Falcao in a minute. The other pros and cons I weighed up, like I said. A more disciplined team once found good possession football. The new system worked very well for Wayne Rooney once he got going. Ashley Young was arguably our best outfield player for a good chunk of the season, which just says a lot about Ashley Young more than anything else in the rest of our team. Herrera was excellent in the second half of the year. De Gea was exceptional. LVG did eventually crack the code with the formation. I think the 4-2-3-1 is the way to go. It's just a matter of finding the right players for said system more than anything else. Angel Di Maria was injury prone, like I said. Still not sure how he fits the team despite having double-digit assists. He does have a final ball, even if LVG was dumb enough to play him as a striker. Luke Shaw was great but was injured half the year. The defence in general was woeful, and we need some experience in terms of centre-backs, and we need, I'd say, at least one player for every defensive spot. If Rafael is not playing, sell him and buy another right-back. A proper right-back. Valencia is perfectly fine as a backup, but we do not need to deal with him as a starting right-back for a team of our stature. We need some experience in the defence because, I mean, Johnny Evans is not cutting it at this level. Smalling is all over the place, as is Phil Jones. We need a proper defensive leader back there. And, you know, someone like Nicolas Otamendi, I mean, I know I've heard rumours about him. I think he'd be a fine signing for us if we had the money for it. I mean, Valencia will apparently want 50 million euros, which is never going to friggin' happen. Because, you know, Valencia are a selling club, so they'll sell him to make money on him. They'll never take 50. They'll probably take 35 or something like that. Just any kind of defensive leader would be great, more than anything else. And just creating more chances. I mean, what's the point of having 75% possession if you're not going to create any chances for your strikers to score from? I mean, looking at it, the West Brom game was a perfect example of that. In the sense of, yeah, we had 80% of the possession, but West Brom was able to shut the door because we were so predictable with the ball. They knew exactly what we were going to do, and then we got caught with that free kick that was deflected and went in, and we deserved to lose that game because we didn't create anything in terms of pure chances. It was ridiculous. But yeah, let's move on. I know some of you guys asked some questions about Manchester United in this squad, and tackling some key points of that as well. Master Swift asked, however bad last season was 2014-15 any better than mediocre? Just making the top four with the most expensive Premier League team ever. The money does not matter. It's like watching a film and then telling me, oh, you got to read the book first. Fuck that. Listen, every team spends stupid amounts of money on their teams. There's more money in the Premier League than any other league. Every team is now spending 100 million a year to try and catch up. It's an arm race. So for me, labelling a team as the most expensive team in Premier League history doesn't mean shit because everybody's overpaying these days. Like, it's not like Man City's team was nice and cheap when they won the Premier League. It's an arms race now. It's just like in Formula 1. You've got to spend money to make money. When a team like Arsenal, the most profitable team in England, starts spending big on guys like Sanchez and Ozil, even they know if you want to win the league, you've got to spend big money now on star players. That's just how this shit works now. So labelling a team the most expensive ever doesn't really mean anything, in my opinion. Yes, it was a mediocre season, but not because of the amount of money we spent. We were mediocre because of our coaching, our injury problems, and the fact that Chelsea was too frigging good. Right, Danny Brennan asks, was Falcao's ultimate failure down to him not being as good as we thought, or LVG's tactics? This one's more on Falcao himself, if you ask me. Like, LVG's coaching wasn't that bad, and Falcao is a striker. I mean, what do you want him to do as a striker? I mean, you know what he's going to do. It was always going to be a risky signing, because a year and a half before we signed him, he tore his ACL. And when you see guys like Samuel Eto'o and David Villa who break their legs or tear a collateral ligament at that age, it's very hard for them to come back to their original form. And it's been a career ender for guys like that. I mean, Falcao tore his ACL at 27 years old. That's not a good time to have a massive injury like that. And many players just don't come back the same. He had a mediocre season in Monaco when he signed for him. Only scored 12 goals. So I thought this was always going to be a risky signing. But, you know, we effectively paid 20+ million for 4 goals. And that's embarrassing. And that was mostly down to Falcao just not being the same player he was 3 years ago, where he was ripping Chelsea to shreds in the Super Cup. So for me, it was a lot more down to Falcao just not being the guy we all thought he was going to be when we signed him, in my humble opinion. The world-famous member of the Sidemen, Ariva, asked, think Depay and Rooney are going to work well as a combo, and are RVP's days of a top-choice selection well gone now? Overall, I really like the Memphis Depay signing, in my opinion. I feel that we need some pace in the attack, and Memphis will provide that. He's a genuine star player who can score from the wing. I know the Eredivisie isn't the strongest league, but to be the top scorer from left wing is impressive. He's a good set piece taker as well, and you know that's another potential way of scoring goals. I'm excited over Memphis Depay. He's a very high rated talent. He's going to work very hard with Manchester. He's worked with Van Gaal before, so Van Gaal will know exactly what to do with him. He had a very good World Cup. So I'm very excited for him, and I don't see any reason why Rooney can't work with a guy like him. As long as you stick Rooney up front, I think we'll have there'll be some very dangerous attacks going forward, and I'm very excited to see what Memphis can do in this team. As for RVP, he's 32 in October, and I don't think he's worth justifying the amount that we're paying him. We're paying him over 200,000 a week, and at this point, Van Persie's never looked the same since Ferguson retired. He had the one amazing season at Manchester where he scored 27 goals, and he's not looked the same since then. He's gotten hurt now and again more often as well, and for me, I feel like Van Persie is not the way to go anymore. He's a good poacher, but for what he's bringing to the team and what we're paying him, I don't think I can justify the value anymore. That's my humble opinion on Van Persie. I don't think he should be starting, but then again, if that's the case, we need to go with strikers. That's just, again, my opinion on that. 2 questions from the Rainmeister on Twitter. It goes, do you agree with Michael Carrick when he said we shouldn't be celebrating 4th? No, we shouldn't be, to be honest. And as a club of the stature of Manchester United, 4th in any other context would be a mediocre season. So let's not treat 4th as a mediocre season now when we all know we were capable of doing better. So I agree with Michael Carrick in that regard. He also asked, if we had the option to sign any striker in the world, who would you sign? The answer to that one is probably Alexander Lacazette. Putting my realist hat on, he had Lyon's greatest ever goal scoring season. The only worry about him is that he didn't score anything against the top 5. Which is a little bit concerning that he might not be a big game player, but as a goal-scoring threat, and one that Lyon will most likely sign to make some money, like they did with Gomez at Swansea, I don't see any reason why we couldn't go after him. And we need a faster, younger striker, because our strike force is all older. Like, Hernandez is 28, Rooney is 29, Van Persie's 32, and Falcao's gone back to France. So, for me, we need a younger striker, and James Wilson, I don't think is there yet, in my opinion. So, yeah, some work needs to be done on that. I'm going on Facebook. Connor asks, how did you come around to being a Manchester United fan, especially knowing you're from London? I personally hate people saying you have to support your local club. I agree with that. It was my dad that got me into Manchester United. He took me to my first game when I was 4 years old. It was that famous game where David Beckham scored from halfway. I was there in that game. That was my 4th birthday, 17th of August 1996. And you know, I've been with them like that ever since, really. So yeah, it was my dad that got me into it. My dad got me into a lot of things sporting wise, and yeah, I completely agree. Saying you have to support your local team is bullshit. And why should you have to support a football team based on something you can't help, which is where you grew up? Most football fans get into football from a very young age, and your place of birth is something you can't help. So why should that impact your footballing decisions? We are very blessed to have the freedom of choice to support whoever we like. And we should not be judged for not supporting your local club. I think that's bullshit, quite frankly. So support whoever the hell you like. If you support your local team, great, awesome. If you don't, that's great too, in my humble opinion. How do you think that Manchester United can improve to start challenging for the title again? Asked Richard Evans. More defensive work. We need to improve the defence, some more pace, and some fresh attackers, in my opinion. I kind of already mentioned that over the course of this video, but that's kind of how I feel. And Owen Harrington asks, do you see anyone challenging Chelsea next year? And if not, what changes do teams need to do to ensure they challenge sooner rather than later? Maybe Man City if they spend big on fix the defence. Maybe Arsenal if they get 3 or 4 real good depth signings. And those are the 2 main contenders in my opinion, because Arsenal do play good football once every 4 months. So yeah, they are threats, but Chelsea have got everything you need. They tick every major box as a contending club. They haven't really got a viable weakness except their lack of Englishmen. Which could be a factor down the road, but not yet. So for me, Chelsea are runaway favourites. They're just an incredible team. They're incredibly well coached and disciplined, and they know what they're doing. And Diego Costa really was the last piece in the puzzle for a team like that, a proper number 9 finisher to tuck away the chances that other guys are creating for them. So for me, I think Chelsea are the landslide favourites, and we'll have to see if anyone else will put anything together to try and stop them. But yeah, that's all my thoughts on Manchester United's 2015 season. I'd love to hear what you guys think, as always. If you want to ask me any questions about Manchester United's season, I can do my best to fill in, or football in general. I'd like to answer them. And if anyone's got any thoughts on whether I should make more football videos down the road, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. But until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've been Harrison. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.